Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important debate. Today we'll be speaking about the Egyptian-European relations, which has witnessed great progress in the recent times, particularly where the subcommittees of both Egypt and the EU Association Agreement have been resumed to discuss the priorities of cooperation in this upcoming period. In light of the interrelation of interests and rapprochements of Egyptian and European visions on many regional and international issues, Egypt seeks through its bilateral relation with the EU to achieve an effective partnership based on equality, mutual understanding and respect of national sovereignty to achieve mutual benefit and face common challenges and threats. Egypt also is coordinating with the EU on a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern. On these bases came the third round of the political consultation between Egypt and Italy, who discussed bilateral relations as well as regional and international issues of mutual concern. This would be tonight's focus in our episode with our dear guest, Ambassador Hagar Islambouly, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Before we delve into our discussion, first let's have the top story of the day. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met on Thursday visiting Bahraini King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa in the Red Sea city of Sharm el-Sheikh for talks that covered bilateral relations in addition to a number of Arab and regional issues of mutual concerns. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi expressed Egypt's appreciation to historic ties that bind the two nations and said he was looking forward to enhancing bilateral relations in various domains. The head of state called for intensifying bilateral talks between officials of both countries and coordinating their consultations concerning consecutive developments in the Middle East region, in addition to consolidating joint Arab and Islamic unity and solidarity in confronting different regional challenges. On his part, King Hamad offered his appreciation to President Sisi and hailed the Egyptian-Bahraini close and sincere ties, confirming that his current visit to Egypt comes within the framework of distinguished relations that bind the two brotherly nations which share one future and destiny. And moving on to another top story of the day, and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Thursday stressed the importance that the upcoming Libyan elections would achieve the free will of the Libyan people and called for unity, or rather for uniting the Libyan army and strengthening Libyan national institutions. During his meeting with visiting Libyan head of the National Unity Government, Abdel Hamid Dbeiba, President Sisi renewed Egypt's stance on respecting Libya's sovereignty and unity and rejecting all forms of foreign intervention in its internal affairs. On his part, Dbeiba expressed his country's appreciation to Egypt's support for Libya's stability and security. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and Dbeiba headed the 11th session of the Egyptian-Libyan High Committee and witnessed the signing of a number of cooperation agreements between the two sides in the field of agriculture, infrastructure and civil aviation security. Moving on to our topic of the day, and before we delve into our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the first report. And Egypt-Italy holds third round of political consultation. Let's watch.
Egypt and Italy have held the third round of political consultations discussing the bilateral relations, the situation in Libya, the Palestinian cause, and the controversial issue of the Renaissance Dam. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ahmad Hafiz in a statement said that the round of consultations focused on addressing bilateral relations between Egypt and Italy in various political, economic, and commercial fields. The session was held at the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs downtown Cairo. It was headed by the Egyptian Assistant Foreign Minister for European Affairs, Ambassador Badra Abdelati, and Italian Director General of Political Affairs at the Italian Foreign Ministry, Ambassador Pascal Ferreira. Last year, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has praised the distinguished relations between the two countries in various political, military, and economic fields. as well as cooperation to address many challenges in the Eastern Mediterranean region, especially combating extremist ideology and terrorism. He stressed the importance that Egypt attaches to the development of various frameworks of joint cooperation, coordination, and consultation between Egypt and Italy regarding various regional issues. On August 4th, 2019, Egyptian and Italian leaders met on the fringe of the G7 in France's Biarritz and tackled the ongoing Libyan crisis, affirming the importance of reaching a political settlement in Libya, guaranteeing its unity without external interference. Italy is Egypt's largest trade partner in the European Union and is the third largest internationally, following the United States and China. By the end of 2014, the volume of trade between the two countries reportedly reached $6 billion.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Ambassador Hagar Islambouly. Let me again welcome you to our episode. And we start with this reporting. You're leading to the latest meeting, or the third round of political consultation between Egypt and Italy, and you're leading to such consultation.
Well, Italy and Egypt enjoy the closest of relations among European countries. They are the closest neighbor to us across the Mediterranean. We have traditional relations that go back in history so long. We've enjoyed relations with Italy that were based on economic, trade, cultural. The cultural relations were the base of strong ties with Italy. Now we're moving wider on the issue of trade and investments and exchanging of investments between both countries. We're moving on a wider scale in the area of energy and gas. It has been enlarged within the Eastern Mediterranean side of the Mediterranean. And all of these pillars of the relation add to the strength of the relations of Italy. However, of course, in spite of that we have strong ties with Italy, we have some differences on some issues. And they remain the center of political consultations among both countries, because both countries value very much their ties, their relations, Italy and Egypt. I certainly share with the Italians their view of the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is nuestro. That means that the Mediterranean Sea belongs to Europe and to us in the southern part of Europe. So this has been always the idea in Italy, and the overwhelming view of their political orientation towards the Eastern Mediterranean. Nowadays, we have some serious differences, and we are working more and more together in order to solve these differences. We need Italy in Libya.
Exactly, and this is exactly what I was just
And
about
they need
to
us
ask
also.
you. It's not just Libya. We're speaking about a number of regional and international issues of mutual concerns. Libya, for an instant, the Mediterranean Gas Forum, another. A third is the illegal immigration. I mean,
They care about
the
the
agenda.
immigration. They give it priority over other issues that are of interest to us.
Right. So how do you view, how did the political consultation, or what were the agenda of these very particular meeting and consultation? just in light of the circumstances?
Well, as I mentioned, that we enjoyed historically relations with Italy. That would mean that the interest of sharing views about the problems of the region are of utmost importance. Libya comes on top of the issues, of course. Other issues, you mentioned some of them. You mentioned the forum, the gas forum on the east of the Mediterranean. All of these issues are very important. We have some differences with the Italians. On Libya, we're working very close with them, trying to bring all European partners together, because we have the French there are playing a significant role in Libya as well, and so is Italy. They have interest in Libya, and we can understand their interests, but we need them with us, pushing forward for stability in Libya.
Actually, two important files were also on the agenda of these consultations: the Palestinian cause,
Of
the
course.
Italian role, of course, in the European Union within this context, and the Renaissance Dam. And these files were added as far as how Italy can be influence to the European Union, and at the same time describe the situation in Egypt, or the Egyptian position towards those two.
Well, I'm glad that we brought up the issue of the dam, the Renaissance Dam, as they call it. The Ethiopian. Well, I call it the Ethiopian dam. They call it whatever they want. We call it the Ethiopian dam.
It is.
I'm glad they brought it up, because this was built by an Italian company, unfortunately. But companies do work on their own. I mean, they look for possibilities, for potentials for them to work in. So we can never say anything about an Italian. But at least we could ask for the help of the Italians in pressing, as a government, the Ethiopian government on coming to an end or a conclusion to finalize a legal agreement concerning the dam. The issue of dams worldwide are usually discussed among the riparian countries. So it's not something, we're calling for something that's very different from what the world is working by. And there, in Europe itself, there are lots of rivers that are shared, and they have agreements, binding agreements, that control the use of the rivers. We have international agreement on riparian rights of the rivers, and this is there already. It's a United Nations agreement that we have to follow. There are steps that we should, how to cooperate on these issues, how to work out. Usually there is a sharing of the managerial part of the dam, so that, because we should know what's happening there in order to make our plans.
We need a legal binding agreement. Yes, we need a legal binding agreement, and this is our position.
Sharing of information. We need to verify the information that they are giving, if it's correct or not. All these things are very important in such areas of cooperation. Of course, Italy can and should, and I think they will, try to accommodate Egyptian interests and Sudanese interests in the negotiations with the Ethiopians. Because we have a strong European, but it's just declaration.
First, because we have a strong position, a legal one, And then, because it's obvious that we are just looking for legitimacy and that's it. Why Egypt and Italy should be looked at as a role model for Mediterranean relations, and at the same time a role model for relations between the West and, or rather what we can say, the foreign
countries?
yes,
Partners,
indeed,
oh.
and the Oriental ones, or the
Well, I'm
Middle
not
East.
sure they can work as a role model, because our
Why should
relations-
they?
Why should they?
It's not if they are, because seriously, when we speak about $6 billion as a capacity of trade or whatsoever in that concern, we're speaking about the minimal. Both countries can do more than that, better than that. Hence, my question would be, why should they, in their both interests, work together as this role model that we need to see?
Well, actually, this is the nature of international relations, how to improve relations with different partners on the issue of trade, of commerce, on political issues and so on. This is the core of international relations. Why with Italy? Because, as we mentioned before, historically, we have lots of exchanges with Italy through history. I think we can build on that. Historically, Southern Europe as a whole, southern countries of Europe, the Mediterranean, that's Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Cyprus, and so on. These are our strong supporters within the EU frame, because they are the closest to us. But we still have to work more and more in order to improve our agreements, in order to improve our exchanges, in order to have them to our side, whether to be a role model for other countries. But I think we have strong relations also with Germany. We have strong relations. Definitely.
This is why I'm speaking about role model relations with a Mediterranean
country. We also have strong relations with
Spain,
Spain,
Greece,
of course. Spain,
Greece
of
and
course.
Cyprus.
Greece
definitely.
and Cyprus are the closest to us. Countries always try to widen the scope and the area of their relations around them. So Italy is important to Egypt, and we need to do more, and they need to do more. We have to work some of the differences that should not be there between such close friends historically.
Indeed.
We have to work out something better than what we have now.
Indeed. Two countries with very or enormous opportunities and interest for them in the future. Indeed. If we get back to our reading, that, of course, this Italy is part of Europe, Egypt is part of the Middle East. It is the core of the Middle East and Africa. That brings us to relations, or you reading to Egypt's international relations, particularly the European area.
Well, I guess the Europeans as a whole are the closest of the closest neighbor to us. We share the strategic interests, we share political interests, we share economic and trade and commerce and so on. Why Europe? Historically, we had Europeans in Egypt and in the whole region. We had the French, we had the British, we had the Italians in Libya, and so on. So historically, there are ties, cultural ties that bind both regions together. Europeans look, as the Americans, because this is the Western view of how they see Egypt. They see Egypt is the how we call it, let me say, I want to use a word that they usually use, and that's the country that they can that the stability in the whole region is based on a bloc that's called Egypt. This is something that's shared with Westerners, whether it's the Americans, whether it's the Europeans, and all of them know that. And even recently, things have shown that very clearly because of the disturbance we're having in the region, in different countries, in the Arab region. It showed Egypt as the strongest player with ideas how to promote stability to the whole region. We had ideas, specific ideas on Syria. We had, of course, Libya, because it's part of our national security. It's the closest to us. If they have terrorism, if they have terrorists, Islamist terrorists, and whether they call it Islam, whatever they want to call it, but they have militias that are of a concern to us. And because of the closeness of we have this, we share the same boundaries. Huh? We share the same boundaries. Also, on the other side, we have Lebanon. We're getting in, trying to be helpful to the Lebanese and so on, trying to find some ways to solve the problems we have with Iraq, Jordan, and all of this region. We're trying to create a new stable region in areas where they are suffering now because of the interventions that happen from foreign players in the region.
And that would take us to our relations with those foreign players. But before we move on with our discussion, let's have this second report on gas deals. Big win for Egypt. Let's watch.
The last step to the official establishment of the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, EMGF, was taken on September 2nd after President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi ratified the forum's charter and approved Egypt's membership. The charter, signed by the forum's founding members in Cairo in September and approved by Parliament in December last year, aims to bring the major producers and exporters of natural gas in the East Mediterranean region into one organization to promote their interests in this sector. The founding members are Egypt, Cyprus, Greece, Israel, Italy, Jordan, Palestine, and France. Both the US and the EU are observers. Established in 2019 as an international organization headquartered in Cairo, the forum also seeks to kick off dialogue among its members on natural gas issues and lay out policies and programs necessary for them. According to a report released by Parliament's Energy Committee, the forum will ensure proper investment in the natural gas reserves of the East Mediterranean region at the present and in the future. It aims to create a kind of sustainable partnership among its members and an international market for natural gas in a way that will guarantee the needs of consumers. The energy ministers of the member states of the EMGF held their first ministerial meeting via video conference in Cairo last March, where they endorsed the EMGF's statutes and program for 2021. The meeting also discussed developing a long-term strategy for the forum and launching initiatives on gas decarbonization and liquefied natural gas as a shipping fuel in line with global environmental trends. A petroleum ministry high-ranking official said that the EU ambassador in Cairo, Christian Berger, has officially requested to join the EMGF as an observer, adding that the EU has been a strategic partner to the forum since the launch of its meetings. The EMGF's energy ministers agreed to hold their next ministerial meeting in Cairo during the last quarter of 2021, adding that in January next year, Cyprus, as the first founding member in alphabetical order, will be the first president of the forum.
Well, welcome back, and back to you, Ambassador Islambouly. And we were speaking about, or as we have seen in this report, the Gas Forum or the Gas Club. And this Gas Forum is one form of cooperation among the Western Mediterranean countries. How does this forum reflect on the relations among the member states of this club or this forum?
Well, it's a forum for exchanges of views, for adopting policies, coordinated policies in the energy sectors in the Eastern Mediterranean. It is a forum where you exchange expertise, you make joint projects, you can develop schemes, regional schemes for cooperation. But to do all that, you need stability in the whole region. You need to focus on the areas where there are fire is on there. So it's a place where we can coordinate with these countries our interests and let them try to convince them to take the views of Egypt as a standard for dealing with this situation in the whole region. We have serious problems in the region that we need the partners with us to help us solve it. Yeah.
Indeed. I was just about to speak about this issue and the challenges that we are facing today. But that forum is particularly for gas and fuel and environmentally friendly fuel and energy is part of the future and part of the opportunities that can gather all those together. If I may speak about the challenges we are speaking here about, then we have to say that challenges today are totally different than the challenges of yesterday. Today, yes, today we're speaking about terrorism, we're speaking about armed conflicts, we're speaking about a pandemic, a global pandemic, for God's sake.
And we will have more pandemics, by the way, because one of the consequences of climate change is pandemic outrages.
Indeed.
And we knew about that from the 90s. That climate change, we will have
that's
storms,
another aspect.
We will have earthquakes, you will have... And nobody believed when we were talking about that. In the 90s, when the Rio conference started to focus on the issue of environment, and many agreements were signed and so on, we knew then that what we will gain from climate change is a disturbance of the ecological systems in the whole world, and then we will face new challenges that we are facing now. This was said in the 90s, studies and researches were done, some accepted, but environment relates to economic development. So people don't want to implement environmental precautions for sustainable development because they are gaining money from industry, for example, cars, the automobile industry, which is now going back because we have to switch to the energy I don't want to get into carbon dioxide and so on, carbon
emissions.
So the climate change relates to the whole of the infrastructure of the structural economy. Countries need to change the structure of their economies, their dependence on the car industry, for example, their dependence on certain industries that are having an impact on the climate. These are very important issues for the interests of the countries. And when you coordinate with similar or regional countries that are close to you, you can find the solutions together or work on policies that could help to change the situation in the region. When it comes to environment, for example, And that's why when I mentioned the dam, the Ethiopian dam, rivers are made for cooperation, not for fighting, not for fighting. They are made for cooperation between countries. And there are legal bases that we all would follow. This will happen in the Eastern Mediterranean as well. Because when you cooperate on the energy sector, for example, and the gas, you have to cooperate together in order, first based on the legal agreements, because we have, luckily enough, the world has been, has lots of legal agreements in different areas that countries share together. So we have Qanun al-Bahar, we have the law of the seas, and this exactly says what should be done in this area. So we make a design in the region, the frontiers between different
regions?
Not regions, but different ابار الغاز
fields, gas fields.
Gas fields and so on. Fields is the word I was looking for. The fields. So we are actually helping each other in scheming the whole of the region together. The more we do of that, the more we have more development in the area of energy, in the area of commerce, of economic development, and so on. Each country would focus on their schemes of development.
You spoke here about climate change, and you brought up the issue. It's part of the emerging points that Egypt has been playing a role in it, particularly with or in terms of cooperation with the United States and the climate change pact of Paris, the Paris climate change. Egypt has also been dealing with the world challenges, including the terrorism and the armed conflicts and the corona. How do you view how Egypt has been part of dealing or putting a vision towards those world challenges? And how far do you see the direct relation between the security in Europe and in the Middle East, in Africa, and how Egypt also is working on that as a challenging file?
Well, that's a huge question.
That's a very huge one, because I have 5 minutes.
But let me tell you something. Multilateral diplomacy has been always at the heart of foreign Egyptian policy. That's not today. That has been historically since the formation. We have been one of the countries that worked on the initiation of the United Nations. So that gives you an idea that our focus has been always on multilateral relations. Within this multilateral relations, the problems when the United Nations moved from politics to the areas after Dr. Boutros Ghali was then, and he started focusing on areas that are related to development. So that came the Rio Conference for Environment and other issues like habitat, like human rights, like women, and so on. He made a series of conferences, summits actually, at the level of the heads of states, in order to work on agendas that promote cooperation worldwide in these areas. And Egypt in these fields was very, was very active. On the issue of environment, let me tell you that Egyptians were the first to make the State of the World annual report on the environment were Egyptians. Dr. Qassas, Dr. Mustafa Tolba was the head of UNEP, the first United Nations apparatus for environment. And many others, Dr. Galal, some Galal, and so on. I can't remember now the names, but all of them worked in the initiation phase of focusing on environmental issues within the United Nations. So we have been always involved in multilateral diplomacy, and it is at the heart of the Egyptian foreign policy. So it's not something new. We are still active on the issue of environment. You mentioned other areas, not only
Terrorism.
Terrorism.
The pandemic.
Well, terrorism, because we suffered a lot from terrorism, so we've acquired expertise on how to fight terrorism. And this is an area...
The security of Europe and...
well, security has been always an interest of all regional partners as well, because we had our problems with the Israelis. So the security issue comes first when we deal with regional problems, because it's something that's related to national security. Egypt has some ideas, some were rejected. One of them, or not rejected, just laid aside, creating an Arab force to face changes and civil wars that are erupting in different parts of the region. One issue, for example, dealing with the Israelis.
Yes.
I don't want to get into that.
We'll get in another episode because my time is out and I have to end it here. But Ambassador Hagar Islambouly from Mrs. and for Mr. It was a real pleasure having you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Thank you very much.
And dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next Sunday would be another important debate with another colleague. Good night.